What happens when a 17-year-old girl who spent 3 years fighting an interstellar war, who learned to pilot mechs, command squadrons, and make life-or-death decisions that saved entire colonies, suddenly finds herself back in a suburban high school cafeteria, trying to figure out why Jessica's Instagram drama is supposed to matter more than the alien invasion she helped stop? Maya-chan thought the hardest part of her life was over when humanity finally won the war against the Kythera Empire. She was wrong. Dead wrong. Because now she has to survive something far more terrifying than plasma rifles and bug-like aliens with a taste for human flesh. She has to survive sophomore year. Armed with reflexes that could snap a person's neck, memories of watching friends die in the void of space, and absolutely zero patience for teenage politics, Maya is about to discover that sometimes the real war begins when you come home. And when an ancient threat decides that Earth wasn't worth conquering before but might be worth destroying now, Maya will learn that her biggest battle isn't choosing between the debate club and track team. It's convincing her classmates that the weird girl who never talks about where she's been for the past 3 years might be the only thing standing between them and total annihilation. Welcome to Jefferson High School, where the real monsters don't come from outer space, they come from homeroom. Maya Chen stood in front of Jefferson High School at 7:43 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, staring at the brick building like it might explode. Given what she'd been through over the past 3 years, that wasn't entirely paranoia. Buildings had a way of exploding around her. The morning air felt wrong against her skin. Too clean. No metallic taste of recycled oxygen, no underlying hum of fusion reactors, no constant vibration of massive engines pushing through hyperspace. Just ordinary Earth air with the smell of car exhaust and someone's overly sweet perfume drifting from the student parking lot. She adjusted the straps of her backpack, a simple black JanSport that felt alien compared to the tactical gear she was used to carrying. Inside were notebooks instead of plasma charges, pencils instead of field medical supplies, and a lunch her mom had packed with a note that said, "Have a great first day back, sweetheart," instead of mission briefings that usually started with casualty estimates. Maya had been 17 when she left Earth. She was still 17 now, thanks to the weird way time worked during faster-than-light travel. 3 years of her life fighting in the Kythera War, and, officially, she'd only been gone for 6 months. The Temporal Immigration Office had done their best to explain it to her parents, but Maya could see the confusion in their eyes every time they looked at her. Their daughter had left for a special government program as an awkward freshman with braces and an obsession with manga. The person who came back knew how to field strip a pulse rifle in 30 seconds, had 17 confirmed kills, and hadn't smiled genuinely in longer than she could remember. The bell rang, a sharp, jarring sound that made Maya's hand twitch toward where her sidearm would have been. Students began streaming toward the entrance, chattering about weekend parties, homework they hadn't done, and drama that seemed to revolve around who was dating whom and what someone had posted on social media. Maya forced herself to move forward, joining the flow of bodies heading into the building. The hallways were exactly as she remembered them, lockers painted an aggressive shade of blue, fluorescent lights that buzzed slightly, and the perpetual smell of floor cleaner mixed with teenage anxiety. Her locker was number 247, same as it had been before she left. The combination was the same too, 18-32-11. She'd memorized thousands of access codes for everything from weapons lockers to spacecraft airlocks, but somehow this simple 3-number sequence felt the most foreign. Maya? Maya Chen? Oh my god, you're back. The voice belonged to Jessica Morrison, who had been Maya's lab partner in freshman biology. Jessica looked exactly the same, blonde hair in a perfect ponytail, makeup applied with precision that would have impressed military engineers, and a smile that was equal parts genuine happiness and calculating curiosity. Hey, Jessica. Maya's voice came out flatter than she'd intended. She'd gotten used to military communication protocols: clear, concise, no emotional inflection unless specifically required for morale purposes. Where have you been? Everyone said you transferred schools, but nobody knew where. You just disappeared after Christmas break freshman year and never came back. Sarah Peterson started a rumor that your family moved to Canada because your dad got in trouble with the IRS. Maya closed her locker and considered her response. The official cover story was that she'd been in a special academic program. Technically true, the Terran Defense Force did provide extensive education along with combat training. She'd learned more about physics, engineering, tactics, and xenobiology in 3 years than most people learned in a lifetime. Special program, Maya said. Kind of like a boarding school thing. Very intensive. Jessica's eyes lit up with the particular gleam of someone who sensed gossip potential. What kind of program? Was it like a military school? You look different. More. She paused, clearly searching for the right word. Serious, I guess. And, you're really tan. Did you spend a lot of time outdoors? Maya thought about the twin sons of Kepler 442b, where she'd spent 6 months helping defend the agricultural colonies. Thought about radiation burns from plasma weapons and the way alien atmospheres played hell with human skin pigmentation. Something like that. The warning bell rang, signaling 5 minutes until first period. Jessica checked her phone and made a face. Ugh, I've got AP history with Murdoch. He's such a hard ass. What's your first class? Maya pulled out her schedule, which had been mailed to her house a week ago. The paper felt strange in her hands, actual paper, not the holographic displays she'd grown accustomed to. Chemistry with Dr. Patterson. Oh, you're lucky. I had him last year. He's pretty cool, even though his class is hard. Hey, we should totally catch up at lunch. I want to hear all about this mysterious program you were in. And, I have so much to tell you about what's been happening here. Drama Central, I swear. Maya nodded noncommittally and started walking toward the chemistry classroom. Jessica fell into step beside her, chattering about teachers and classmates and a dozen other things that washed over Maya like background noise. The chemistry classroom was on the second floor, and, as they climbed the stairs, Maya's enhanced reflexes kicked in automatically. She found herself scanning exit routes, noting potential defensive positions, and cataloging which students might be useful in a crisis situation. The tall kid with the varsity jacket looked strong but moved with the coordination of someone who'd never faced real danger. The quiet girl with the army surplus backpack had potential. She moved with more awareness than her classmates and kept her head on a swivel. These were not normal thoughts for a high school student, Maya realized. But, then, again, she wasn't really a normal high school student anymore. Dr. Patterson turned out to be a middle-aged man with graying hair and safety goggles pushed up on his forehead. He was setting up some kind of demonstration involving colorful liquids and what Maya's trained eye immediately identified as a poorly ventilated reaction chamber. Find any open seat, he called out as students filed in. We're starting with a bang today. Literally. Maya chose a seat near the back, close to the emergency exit. Old habits. She found herself evaluating the other students as potential squad members who would keep their head in a crisis, who would panic, who might have useful skills. The demonstration involved mixing several chemicals that produced a loud pop and a flash of colored smoke. Dr. Patterson grinned as several students jumped or gasped in surprise. Maya didn't even blink. She'd seen real explosions, the kind that turned buildings into vapor and left craters where people used to be. The kind that lit up the darkness of space and meant someone wouldn't be going home to their family. This was just chemistry. Impressive reaction time, Dr. Patterson said, looking directly at Maya. Most students at least flinch a little. You must have steady nerves. Something like that, Maya replied. Dr. Patterson handed out lab sheets and began explaining the semester's curriculum. Maya found herself genuinely interested in the material, but for reasons that probably weren't typical for a high school chemistry class. Understanding chemical reactions wasn't just academic anymore. She'd used improvised explosives in the field, had to know which compounds were stable in alien atmospheres and which ones would kill you faster than enemy fire. The boy sitting next to her, according to his notebook, his name was Kevin, leaned over during the lecture. Hey, you're new, right? I haven't seen you around before. Not exactly new. I was here freshman year, then went away for a while. Kevin nodded like this made perfect sense. Cool. Where'd you go? Maya considered the question. Where had she gone? The Arcturus system, where she'd learned to pilot heavy combat mechs. The Vega colony, where she'd held the line during the siege of New Shanghai Station. The hidden asteroid base where Terran Command had planned the final assault on the Kith-era homeworld. Boarding school, she said finally. Must have been some boarding school. You seem really. Kevin paused, the same way Jessica had earlier. Confident, I guess. Like, really sure of yourself. Confidence wasn't the right word, Maya thought. When you'd been shot at by aliens with energy weapons, when you'd watched friends die and had to keep fighting anyway, when you'd been responsible for decisions that meant life or death for hundreds of people, high school just didn't seem very threatening. The class period passed quickly. Dr. Patterson was a good teacher, and Maya found herself taking detailed notes despite already knowing most of the material. When the bell rang, she gathered her things efficiently and prepared for the next challenge of the day, which turned out to be navigating the hallways between classes. Maya had forgotten how chaotic schools could be. Students moved in unpredictable patterns, clustering around lockers, stopping suddenly to talk to friends, generally behaving like civilians who'd never learned proper movement protocols. She found herself unconsciously trying to maintain tactical spacing and clear sight lines, which was difficult when everyone else was moving like a disorganized mob. Her second class was English literature with Ms. Rodriguez, who immediately handed out a reading list that included several books Maya had actually read during her downtime between missions. War stories, mostly All Quiet on the Western Front, The Things They Carried, Catch-22. The irony wasn't lost on her. We'll be starting with some contemporary fiction, Ms. Rodriguez explained. I want you to think about how these authors explore themes of conflict, loss, and coming of age. Consider how characters deal with experiences that change them fundamentally. Maya almost laughed. If only Ms. Rodriguez knew. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of teachers explaining syllabi and classmates trying to figure out who she was. Maya gave short, non-committal answers to questions about where she'd been and what she'd done. The official cover story held up under casual scrutiny, but she could see the curiosity in people's eyes. Lunch period arrived, and Maya found herself facing what might have been her most challenging mission yet, a high school cafeteria. The noise hit her first, hundreds of conversations happening at once, the clatter of trays and chairs, the general chaos of teenagers freed from the constraint of classroom behavior. Maya's enhanced hearing, trained to pick up enemy movement and communication, was overwhelmed by the sensory input. She grabbed a tray and moved through the lunch line, automatically cataloging exit routes and potential defensive positions. The food looked alien to her, nothing like the nutrient paste and synthesized proteins she'd grown used to eating. Pizza, hamburgers, French fries, all of it colorful and probably loaded with enough sugar and fat to power a small spacecraft. Maya chose a sandwich and a bottle of water, then surveyed the seating situation. The cafeteria was divided into invisible territories based on social hierarchies she'd forgotten existed. The athletes sat at tables near the windows, the theater kids clustered around tables covered in art supplies and sheet music, the academic overachievers had claimed spots near the vending machines. She was looking for an empty table when Jessica appeared at her elbow. Maya. There you are. Come sit with us. Jessica led her to a table occupied by several girls Maya vaguely remembered from freshman year. They all looked up with interest as she approached. Everyone, you remember Maya Chen from freshman year. She's back from some mysterious boarding school program. The introductions went quickly. Sarah, who apparently had started the rumor about Maya's family moving to Canada, Emma, who was now editor of the school newspaper, Lisa, who had become captain of the debate team. All of them seemed to have grown into more definitive versions of who they'd been as freshmen. Maya sat down and unwrapped her sandwich, listening to the conversation flow around her. The topics were exactly what she'd expected: gossip about teachers, complaints about homework, speculation about who would be nominated for homecoming court. So Maya, Emma said, leaning forward with the intensity of someone who'd spent years interviewing people for newspaper articles, Jessica says you were in some kind of special program. What was it like? Maya chewed her sandwich slowly, buying time. Intensive. Lots of studying. Pretty isolated. What did you study? Science. Engineering. Strategy and tactics. Sarah's eyebrows went up. Strategy and tactics? Like military stuff? Something like that. Lisa jumped in, clearly intrigued. That sounds amazing. Was it like a military academy? Did you have to wear uniforms and do drills and stuff? Maya thought about the power armor she'd worn during combat missions, the weapons training that had started before dawn every day, the endless drills that had kept her alive when alien raiders tried to overrun forward operating base Prometheus. "Yeah," she said simply. The conversation continued, but Maya found herself only half listening. Her attention kept drifting to the other students around them. The way they moved, the way they talked, the complete lack of situational awareness that would have gotten them killed in about 30 seconds in any combat zone. She was watching a group of boys at a nearby table when something made her freeze. One of them, a lanky kid with dark hair and an easy smile, was telling a story about some video game he'd been playing. But, as he gestured, Maya caught a glimpse of something on his wrist. A mark that looked like a scar but wasn't quite the right color or texture. Maya's enhanced vision zoomed in automatically, the way it had been trained to do when identifying potential threats. The mark was small, geometric, and definitely not human in origin. It was a Kythera identification tag. The kind that enemy infiltrators used to mark humans who had been compromised. Maya's hand moved toward her hip, where her sidearm should have been, before she remembered where she was. She forced herself to remain calm, to keep eating her sandwich like nothing had happened. But her mind was racing. The Kythera War was over. The alien empire had been defeated, their homeworld destroyed, their surviving forces scattered to the far reaches of the galaxy. There shouldn't be any infiltrators left on Earth. Which meant either the intelligence reports had been wrong, or something new was happening. Maya finished her lunch in silence, making mental notes about the boy with the mark. His name, according to the conversation she was now listening to intently, was Derek Hoffman. He was a junior, played tennis, and was apparently dating someone named Ashley who went to a different school. He was also, potentially, under the influence of hostile alien forces. When the lunch period ended, Maya made an excuse about needing to find her locker and separated from Jessica's group. She followed Derek Hoffman at a discreet distance, using skills she'd learned during reconnaissance missions. Derek moved through the hallways normally, stopping to talk to friends, checking his phone, acting like any other high school student. But Maya noticed things that others wouldn't: the way his eyes tracked movement with slightly more precision than normal, the way he unconsciously positioned himself to have clear sightlines to all exits, the subtle way he seemed to be evaluating other students. Combat awareness. Someone had trained him, or something was controlling him. Maya's third period was advanced placement physics, which turned out to be taught by Mr. Kim, a young teacher who clearly loved his subject. Under normal circumstances, Maya would have enjoyed the class. Physics had been crucial to understanding how weapons systems worked, how spacecraft moved through different gravitational fields, how to calculate trajectory adjustments for artillery in low-gravity environments. But she spent the entire period thinking about Derek Hoffman and what his presence might mean. After school, Maya walked home slowly, taking a route that let her observe as much of the neighborhood as possible. Everything looked normal: suburban houses with well-maintained lawns, kids riding bikes, parents picking up mail from mailboxes. But Maya had learned that normal didn't mean safe. Sometimes the most dangerous threats were the ones that looked perfectly ordinary. Her house was exactly as she'd left it, a two-story colonial with blue shutters and a garden her mother spent too much time maintaining. Maya paused at the front door, key in hand, and realized that this should feel like coming home. Instead, it felt like entering another kind of battlefield. Inside, her mother was cooking dinner and humming softly to herself. The smell of roast chicken filled the kitchen, along with something that might have been apple pie. It was aggressively normal, like her mother was trying to recreate some idealized version of family life. "How was your first day back, sweetheart?" her mother asked, turning with a bright smile that didn't quite hide the worry in her eyes. Maya set her backpack down and considered the question. How was her first day back? She discovered a potential alien infiltrator, realized that her combat reflexes were going to be a problem in civilian situations, and confirmed that she no longer fit into the life she'd left behind. "Fine," she said. "Just like a normal high school." Her mother's smile became more genuine. "I'm so glad. I know it must be an adjustment after that program you were in, but I think being back with kids your own age will be good for you. You seemed so serious when you first came home." Maya nodded and headed upstairs to her room, which her mother had preserved exactly as she'd left it 3 years ago. Posters of anime characters on the walls, a desk covered in art supplies she'd never used, a bookshelf full of young adult novels about chosen ones and magical schools. It felt like a museum exhibit about someone else's life. Maya sat on her bed and pulled out her phone, a regular civilian device that felt clunky compared to the military-grade communication equipment she was used to. She needed to contact her handler at Terran Defense Force Intelligence, but she couldn't use normal channels from her house. Too much risk of surveillance. Instead, she opened her laptop and began composing what looked like a college application essay about her experiences in the special program. To anyone monitoring internet traffic, it would seem perfectly innocent. But embedded in the text were code words and phrases that would alert TDF intelligence that she'd encountered a potential threat situation. As she typed, Maya realized that her war might not be over after all. She'd thought coming home meant returning to safety, to a normal life where the biggest threat was pop quizzes and social drama. But the universe, apparently, had other plans. Outside her bedroom window, the sun was setting over suburban houses and well-maintained lawns. Everything looked peaceful and ordinary. Maya knew better than to trust appearances. Maya woke up at 0500 hours, same as she had every morning for the past 3 years. Her internal chronometer was more reliable than any alarm clock, and her body was hardwired to wake before dawn regardless of how much sleep she'd gotten. She lay in bed for exactly 30 seconds, listening to the sounds of her neighborhood. Birds chirping. A dog barking 3 houses down. Someone starting their car in a driveway. No artillery fire, no emergency klaxons, no sounds of alien spacecraft breaching the atmosphere. Just normal Earth morning sounds that somehow felt more alien than anything she'd encountered in 3 years of interstellar warfare. Maya rolled out of bed and began her morning routine: 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, basic stretching exercises that kept her combat ready. Her mother had commented on the sounds from upstairs, worried that Maya was having trouble sleeping. Maya had explained that she'd gotten used to exercising early in the morning during her program, which was true enough. She showered quickly, efficiently, using exactly the amount of soap and shampoo necessary to get clean. No wasted motion, no luxury products, none of the elaborate grooming rituals she remembered other girls her age going through. When you'd learn to shower in 30 seconds using recycled water aboard a military transport, regular showers felt almost decadent. Breakfast was protein bars and orange juice. Her mother had offered to make eggs and bacon, but Maya's digestive system had adapted to field rations and simple nutrition. Besides, she needed to maintain peak physical condition. Just because she was back in high school didn't mean she could afford to get soft. The walk to Jefferson High gave Maya time to think about the coded message she'd sent the night before. TDF intelligence had protocols for situations like this: suspected alien infiltration in civilian populations, but those protocols assumed that the operative making the report was in a controlled environment with backup and resources. They didn't account for the operative being a 17-year-old girl pretending to be a normal high school student. Maya arrived at school 15 minutes early and used the time to observe other students as they arrived. She'd spent half the night researching Derek Hoffman through official channels, or rather, through databases that looked official but were actually maintained by Terran Defense Force Intelligence. Derek Hoffman, age 16, born in Phoenix, Arizona. Moved to this town with his family 2 years ago when his father got a job at the local tech company. Good grades, no criminal record, played JV tennis as a freshman and had made varsity this year. On paper, he was exactly what he appeared to be. But Maya had learned that alien infiltrators were very good at creating convincing background documentation. She spotted Derek at his locker, talking to a girl with red hair who was apparently Ashley, the girlfriend who went to a different school. Maya positioned herself where she could observe without being obvious, pretending to check her own locker while watching Derek in her peripheral vision. The mark on his wrist was definitely there, a small, geometric pattern that looked like a tattoo at casual glance but had the slightly luminescent quality of Kythera biotechnology. Maya had seen similar marks on prisoners of war, humans who had been captured and subjected to neural conditioning by enemy forces. But Derek wasn't acting like a mind-controlled prisoner. He was laughing at something Ashley said, showing her something on his phone, behaving like a normal teenager. Either the conditioning was more sophisticated than anything Maya had encountered during the war, or something else was going on. The first bell rang, and Maya made her way to chemistry class. Dr. Patterson was setting up another demonstration, this one involving what appeared to be controlled combustion of various metal samples. "Good morning, Maya," he said as she entered the classroom. "I was hoping you'd be early. I wanted to ask you about something." Maya tensed slightly. "What about?" "Your background knowledge. Yesterday I noticed you didn't seem surprised by any of the reactions we demonstrated. Most students are still getting used to the idea that chemistry can be dramatic. You acted like you'd seen it all before." Maya chose her words carefully. "I had a good science program at my previous school." Dr. Patterson nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. "Must have been quite a program. I'm curious, have you had any experience with exotic materials? Unusual chemical compounds that don't appear in standard textbooks?" The question sent warning signals through Maya's enhanced reflexes. Dr. Patterson was being very specific, and his casual tone didn't match the intensity in his eyes. "What kind of exotic materials?" Maya asked. "Oh, theoretical stuff mostly. Compounds that might be synthesized under extreme conditions, high radiation environments, zero gravity, that sort of thing. The kind of research that's being done at advanced laboratories." Maya realized that Dr. Patterson was fishing for information. The question was whether he was fishing on behalf of Terran Defense Force intelligence or someone else entirely. "I don't know much about that," Maya said truthfully. Dr. Patterson smiled and turned back to his demonstration setup. "Of course not. I was just curious. You seem to have an unusual depth of knowledge for someone your age." Other students began filing into the classroom, and Maya took her seat near the back. Kevin, the boy who had tried to make conversation the day before, sat down next to her with a friendly smile. "Hey again. How was your first day back yesterday? Get caught up on all the gossip?" "Something like that," Maya said. "Cool. So what's your next class? Maybe we have something together." Maya pulled out her schedule. AP History with Mr. Murdoch. Kevin made a face. "Oof. Good luck with that. Murdoch is tough. Really into military history, especially wars and battles and stuff. He makes everyone do these intense research projects about conflicts throughout history." "What kind of conflicts?" "All kinds. Last semester someone did the Civil War, someone else did World War II. But Murdoch really likes the unusual stuff, battles that most people haven't heard of, military strategies that changed everything, that kind of thing. He's always talking about how war drives innovation." Maya found herself genuinely interested in spite of herself. Military history wasn't just academic to her anymore. Dr. Patterson called for attention and began his demonstration. This time he was showing how different metals burned with different colored flames, sodium producing yellow light, copper turning green, lithium creating brilliant red. "The important thing to understand," Dr. Patterson explained, "is that these color signatures are like fingerprints. Every element produces a unique spectral pattern when it's excited by energy. This is how we identify unknown substances, even at vast distances." Maya thought about the spectral analysis equipment she'd used during the war, devices that could identify alien technology from sensor readings taken light years away. The principles were the same, but the applications had been considerably more deadly. After chemistry, Maya made her way to AP History. The classroom was smaller than she'd expected, with only about 15 students. Mr. Murdoch turned out to be a thin man in his 40s with graying hair and intense eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Welcome to Advanced Placement History," he said as students settled into their seats. "This is not a class about memorizing dates and names. This is a class about understanding why things happen, how conflicts develop, and what we can learn from the mistakes and successes of the past." Maya found herself paying close attention as Mr. Murdoch outlined his teaching philosophy. "War," he continued, "is one of the most powerful forces for change in human history. It drives technological advancement, reshapes political boundaries, and forces societies to adapt or die. Some of you might find the subject uncomfortable, but I believe it's essential to understand conflict if we want to prevent unnecessary wars in the future." A girl near the front raised her hand.
Are we going to study recent conflicts? Like the Middle East or Afghanistan?
Mr. Murdoch smiled. We'll cover some contemporary issues, but I'm more interested in helping you understand patterns that repeat throughout history. The weapons change, the technology evolves, but human nature remains remarkably consistent. Maya thought about the Kith-era war, which had started because two species had competed for the same resources and been unable to find a diplomatic solution. The technology had been advanced beyond anything in human history, but the underlying causes were as old as civilization itself. For your first assignment, Mr. Murdoch continued, I want you to choose a conflict that most people haven't heard of, something that changed the course of history but didn't make it into popular culture.
Research the causes, the key battles, the consequences. But, more importantly, I want you to analyze what lessons we can learn from it.
Maya's mind immediately went to the Battle of Kepler Station, where a small force of human defenders had held off a much larger Kith-era fleet by using unconventional tactics and taking advantage of the enemy's overconfidence. It was exactly the kind of unknown conflict that had changed everything, but she obviously couldn't write about it. After class, Maya was gathering her books when Mr. Murdoch approached her.
Miss Chen, isn't it? I understand you're returning from a special program?
Yes, sir.
What kind of program, if you don't mind me asking?
Maya gave him the standard cover story, but Mr. Murdoch was listening with the same intensity she'd seen in Dr. Patterson's eyes.
Interesting, he said when she finished. Strategy and tactics, you mentioned?
I'd be curious to hear more about that curriculum sometime. It's rare to find students with serious interest in military theory. It was pretty basic stuff, Maya said carefully.
I'm sure.
But if you're interested in exploring the subject further, I have some additional reading materials that might challenge you. Advanced texts that go beyond what we'll cover in class. Maya nodded noncommittally and headed for her next period, but she was thinking hard about both Dr. Patterson and Mr. Murdoch. Two teachers in one day had shown unusual interest in her background. That could be coincidence, or it could mean that word of her return had reached people who were paying attention. The rest of the morning passed without incident. Maya attended calculus, where she found the material almost laughably simple compared to the orbital mechanics and targeting calculations she'd been doing during the war. She went to English literature, where they were discussing themes of alienation in modern fiction, a subject she unfortunately knew more about than she wanted to. Lunch period brought her back to the cafeteria and another round of social navigation. Jessica's group had apparently claimed her as a permanent member, and Maya found herself sitting at the same table as the day before. The conversation today centered around homecoming, which was apparently a big deal at Jefferson High.
Maya listened with half her attention while scanning the cafeteria for Derek Hoffman.
She spotted him at his usual table, but today he wasn't just talking to friends. He was having what looked like an intense conversation with two other students, a girl with dark hair who Maya didn't recognize and a boy who looked like he might be on the football team. Maya's enhanced hearing let her pick out fragments of their discussion despite the background noise of the cafeteria. What she heard made her blood run cold.
The timeline has been moved up. Still need more time to prepare. Targets have been identified. When the signal comes, everyone needs to be ready.
It was the kind of conversation that could have been about anything: a school project, a surprise party, a sports team strategy. But, combined with the mark on Derek's wrist and the general sense that something was wrong, it sounded like coordination between infiltrators. Maya forced herself to keep eating and responding to Jessica's chatter about dress shopping and corsages, but she was mentally cataloging every detail she could observe about Derek's companions. The girl was probably 16 or 17, moved with confidence, and had what looked like a small scar behind her left ear. The boy was bigger, maybe a senior, but had the same subtle signs of combat awareness that Maya had noticed in Derek.
3 infiltrators, potentially more.
And they were discussing timelines and targets. Maya needed to report this immediately, but she couldn't leave the cafeteria without raising suspicions from Jessica's group. Instead, she pulled out her phone and began composing what looked like a text message to her mother about needing supplies for a school project.
Embedded in the innocent-looking message were code phrases that would alert TDF intelligence to an escalating threat situation requiring immediate backup.
After lunch, Maya had study hall, which gave her a chance to do more research. She used the school's computer lab to look up information about the other students she'd observed with Derek.
Sarah Martinez, Jr., moved here from New Mexico last year.
Kyle Thompson, Sr., star of the football team, family had lived in town for generations. On the surface, they looked like normal students.
But Maya had learned to look beneath surfaces. She was cross-referencing enrollment dates when someone sat down at the computer next to hers. Maya glanced over and saw Derek Hoffman himself, logging into his student account.
For a moment, Maya considered the direct approach, confronting him, demanding to know what the mark on his wrist meant, forcing him to explain what kind of timeline and targets he'd been discussing. But that would blow her cover and potentially endanger civilians. Instead, she kept working on her research while observing Derek in her peripheral vision. He was checking his email, scrolling through what looked like normal student messages. But then, he opened a web browser and navigated to what appeared to be a social media site Maya didn't recognize. The interface was sleek, modern, and completely empty of the kind of content typical social media sites displayed. Instead, there were symbol-based messages that reminded Maya uncomfortably of Kith-era communication protocols. Derek spent several minutes reading messages and typing responses, all in symbols that Maya's enhanced pattern recognition software identified as a sophisticated cipher. When he finished, he carefully cleared his browser history and logged out of his account. Maya waited until he left the computer lab, then moved to the computer he'd been using. Most students didn't realize that school computer systems kept temporary files even after browser histories were cleared, and Maya's military training included basic digital forensics. It took her less than 5 minutes to recover fragments of the website Derek had been visiting. What she found confirmed her worst fears. The symbols weren't just a cipher, they were a hybrid communication system that combined human linguistic structures with Kith-era information architecture. Someone had developed a way for human infiltrators to receive complex instructions through a medium that would look innocuous to casual observation.
Maya photographed the screen with her phone, making sure to capture enough detail for TDF intelligence to analyze.
Then, she carefully cleared her own digital trail and headed to her final class of the day. Advanced placement physics turned out to be more interesting than she'd expected, largely because Mr. Kim was covering concepts that directly related to her military experience. When he started explaining relativistic effects and their practical applications, Maya found herself thinking about hyperspace navigation and the way time dilation had let her fight a 3-year war while only being gone from Earth for 6 months. The key thing to understand, Mr. Kim was explaining, is that space and time aren't separate concepts. They're part of a unified structure that can be manipulated under the right conditions.
Theoretically, someone could use these principles to achieve faster-than-light travel, though the energy requirements would be enormous.
A student raised her hand.
Is that just theoretical? Or are people actually working on that kind of technology? Mr. Kim smiled. As far as public knowledge goes, it's purely theoretical. Though I imagine there are research projects we don't know about.
Military applications, probably governments tend to classify anything that might provide strategic advantages. Maya kept her expression neutral, but she was thinking about the hyperspace drives that had made human victory in the Kith-era war possible. Technology that was supposed to remain classified for at least another 50 years.
After class, Maya walked home through the same suburban neighborhoods that had seemed so peaceful the day before. But now she was seeing them differently, wondering how many of the normal-looking houses might contain infiltrators, how many of the friendly neighbors might be operating under alien influence.
At home, her mother greeted her with the same aggressive cheerfulness as the day before.
"How was school, sweetheart? Making friends? I'm so glad you're getting back to a normal routine."
Maya almost laughed at the idea that her routine was normal. But she smiled and gave her mother the kind of reassuring answers that would keep her from worrying. After dinner, Maya retreated to her room and opened her laptop. The coded message she'd sent during lunch had been acknowledged, and there was a response waiting for her in the form of another innocent-looking email about college application deadlines.
Decoded, the message was short and direct: backup en route. Maintain cover. Do not engage unless directly threatened. Report any new developments immediately.
Maya leaned back in her chair and looked out her bedroom window at the quiet neighborhood street.
Somewhere out there, TDF intelligence operatives were moving into position, preparing for whatever threat the infiltrators represented.
But Maya was the one on the inside, the one who would have to identify targets and gather intelligence while pretending to care about homework and social drama. She opened her textbooks and began working on assignments that felt surreal given the circumstances.
Calculus problems that seemed trivial compared to trajectory calculations for orbital bombardment.
English essays about literary themes that paled next to the real-world experience of watching friends die for causes they believed in. As she worked, Maya found herself thinking about the conversation she'd overheard at lunch.
Timelines, targets, signals, the language of military coordination. Whatever the infiltrators were planning, it was happening soon. And Maya was the only one in position to stop it.
Outside her window, the suburban evening continued its peaceful routine.
Parents called children in for dinner. Dogs barked. Someone was mowing their lawn. Normal life, continuing obliviously while an alien threat prepared to strike.
Maya finished her homework and began preparing for what might be her most important mission yet, staying alive and maintaining her cover while figuring out how to save her classmates from something they didn't even know was coming. Maya's phone buzzed at 3:47 a.m. with a text message that looked like spam about a limited-time offer on car insurance. To anyone monitoring her communications, it would seem like the kind of junk message that teenagers received all the time. But Maya recognized the code embedded in the seemingly random numbers and marketing language. TDF intelligence had detected unusual electromagnetic signatures around Jefferson High School, energy patterns consistent with Kith-era technology but modified in ways they'd never seen before. The backup team was in position, but they needed more intelligence before they could act. Maya was to maintain her cover and gather specific information about the infiltrators' capabilities and objectives. Maya deleted the message and lay back down, but sleep was impossible. She spent the remaining hours before dawn running scenarios in her head, thinking about the tactical situation and what resources she might have available if things went wrong. She arrived at school early again, using the extra time to observe patterns in student movement and identify potential escape routes. Jefferson High had been built in the 1970s with a typical open layout, multiple buildings connected by covered walkways, large windows, and plenty of places where someone could hide or where explosions might cause maximum casualties.
Maya was checking her locker when she noticed something that made her freeze.
The lock mechanism looked normal, but there were microscopic scratches around the edges that indicated someone had been inside.
Professional work.
Whoever had opened her locker had done it without leaving obvious traces, but Maya's enhanced vision caught details that normal students would miss. She opened the locker carefully, scanning for anything that might have been planted. Her books were exactly where she'd left them, but something felt different about the arrangement. Someone had searched through her things and tried to put everything back exactly as they'd found it.
The question was who?
TDF intelligence operatives conducting a security check, or infiltrators trying to learn more about the new student who'd been asking too many questions. Maya closed her locker and made her way to first period, but she was thinking hard about who might have had access to the school building overnight. Custodial staff, security guards, teachers who stayed late, administrators with master keys, or students who had help from people with advanced technology. Chemistry class began with Dr. Patterson announcing a special laboratory exercise. "Today we're going to work with some unusual compounds," he said, wheeling out a cart covered with equipment Maya didn't recognize. "These materials aren't typically available for high school chemistry, but I've arranged for us to have access through a special research program."
Maya studied the equipment more carefully.
The containers holding the chemical samples had markings that looked familiar, not human script, but something she'd seen before during the war.
Dr.
Patterson began explaining the exercise, but Maya was only half listening. She was focused on the way he handled the samples, the protective equipment he was using, and the fact that several of the compounds were glowing with the same bioluminescent quality she'd noticed in Derek's identification mark.
This wasn't a normal chemistry demonstration.
This was exposure to alien technology, presented as an educational exercise. Maya raised her hand.
"Professor Patterson, what exactly are these compounds? I've never seen anything like them."
"Excellent question, Maya. These are synthetic materials created under extreme conditions, high radiation, zero-gravity environments. They have properties that don't exist in naturally occurring substances. He held up one of the glowing samples. For instance, this compound can interface with biological neural networks in ways that conventional chemistry can't achieve. Neural interface technology. Maya's enhanced reflexes tensed automatically. During the war, the Kythera had used similar substances to control captured humans, rewriting their neural patterns to create perfect infiltrators. "Is it safe to handle?" asked Kevin, who was sitting next to Maya and looking nervous about the glowing chemicals. "With proper precautions, absolutely. The exposure levels we'll be working with are completely harmless to humans. In fact, some research suggests that limited exposure might actually enhance certain cognitive functions." Maya realized that Dr. Patterson wasn't just demonstrating alien technology, he was testing the students' reactions to it. Seeing who showed unusual knowledge, who asked the right questions, who might be more than they appeared. The laboratory exercise proceeded normally, with students working in pairs to test the properties of the unusual compounds. Maya partnered with Kevin and made sure to act appropriately surprised by the material's strange behaviors. But, while she worked, she was memorizing every detail about the equipment, the chemical compositions, and the way Dr. Patterson monitored their reactions. This information would be crucial for TDF intelligence to understand what they were dealing with. During the exercise, Maya noticed Derek Hoffman watching her from across the laboratory. Not casual observation, focused surveillance of the kind she'd been trained to recognize. When their eyes met, Derek smiled and looked away, but Maya had caught the intensity in his expression. After chemistry, Maya had 15 minutes between classes. Instead of going to her locker, she made her way to the bathroom and used her phone to send another coded message, this one disguised as a text to her mother about needing money for school supplies. Embedded in the message were details about the alien compounds and Dr. Patterson's suspicious behavior. If TDF intelligence could analyze the information quickly enough, they might be able to determine what the infiltrators were actually planning. AP history turned out to be even more revealing than chemistry class. Mr. Murdoch began the period by discussing historical examples of successful infiltration operations. Throughout history, he explained, the most effective military strategies have often involved deception rather than direct confrontation. Small groups of highly trained operatives, working from within enemy territory, have changed the course of entire wars. He projected images onto the classroom screen, historical examples of espionage, sabotage, and psychological warfare. But Maya noticed that several of the tactical diagrams looked suspiciously similar to Kythera operational doctrines she'd studied during military intelligence training. The key to successful infiltration, Mr. Murdoch continued, is patience. Infiltrators must be willing to spend months or years building their cover identities, gaining the trust of their targets, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A student raised her hand. How do you tell if someone is an infiltrator? Are there signs to look for? Mr. Murdoch smiled. Excellent question. The best infiltrators are nearly impossible to detect because they become their cover identities completely. They think like the people they're pretending to be, they adopt their values and behaviors, they form genuine emotional connections. Maya thought about Derek, Sarah, and Kyle. If they were infiltrators, they'd been building their cover identities for years. They had friends, academic records, families who believed they were normal teenagers. However, Mr. Murdoch continued, there are sometimes subtle indicators. Infiltrators often have unusual skill sets that don't quite match their background stories. They might know more about certain subjects than they should, or react to situations in ways that suggest specialized training. Maya realized that Mr. Murdoch was describing her almost perfectly. Her knowledge of chemistry, her reflexes, her ability to notice details that other students missed, all of it could be interpreted as evidence that she was more than she appeared to be. The question was whether Mr. Murdoch suspected her of being an infiltrator, or whether he was an infiltrator himself, trying to determine if she was a threat to their operation. After history class, Maya was walking toward her locker when she noticed a commotion near the main entrance. A group of students had gathered around someone who appeared to be having some kind of medical emergency. Maya pushed through the crowd and saw Kyle Thompson, the football player she'd observed with Derek the day before, convulsing on the floor. His eyes were rolled back, showing only white, and there was a strange luminescent fluid leaking from his ears. The school nurse was trying to help him, but she clearly had no idea what she was dealing with. Other students were pulling out phones to record video or call 911.
Maya knelt down next to Kyle and quickly assessed his condition. The symptoms were consistent with neural interface rejection. What happened when alien control technology encountered a human immune system that could resist it?
Everyone back up, Maya said with the kind of authority that made people obey automatically.
Give him space to breathe.
She checked Kyle's pulse and pupil response, using medical training that was supposed to be far beyond what a high school student should possess. The neural interface was failing, which meant Kyle was either fighting off the control or the technology was malfunctioning.
Has anyone called 911? Maya asked. Ambulance is on the way, someone replied. Maya looked up and saw Derek Hoffman and Sarah Martinez standing at the edge of the crowd.
They weren't showing the shock or concern that other students displayed. Instead, they looked calculating, like they were evaluating whether Kyle's condition represented a threat to their mission.
Maya made a quick decision.
I know first aid, she announced.
I'm going to try to stabilize him until the paramedics arrive.
She positioned herself so that her body blocked Derek and Sarah's view of Kyle, then began what looked like standard first aid procedures but was actually a technique for disrupting alien neural interfaces. Maya had learned it during prisoner rescue operations, how to break the control systems that the Kythera used to manipulate captured humans. Kyle's convulsions began to subside, and the luminescent fluid stopped flowing from his ears. His eyes focused, and he looked up at Maya with confusion and recognition.
What happened to me?" he whispered.
You had some kind of seizure, Maya said quietly.
Don't try to move. Help is coming.
But Kyle gripped her wrist with surprising strength.
I remember things, he said urgently. Things I wasn't supposed to remember.
They made me forget, but it's coming back now.
What things?
The base. Underground, beneath the school.
They're planning something for tomorrow night. During the football game. When everyone will be gathered in one place. Maya's blood ran cold.
A mass casualty event during a school function, when hundreds of people would be concentrated in a predictable location.
How many of them are there? Maya asked. I don't know. Dozens, maybe more. Teachers, students, people from town. Anyone who showed the right neural patterns for the conditioning process. The sound of sirens was getting closer. Maya had maybe 30 seconds before paramedics arrived and Kyle would be taken away.
Kyle, listen to me carefully.
You need to act like you don't remember anything unusual. Pretend you just had a normal medical emergency.
If they think you've broken free from their control, you'll be in serious danger.
Kyle nodded weakly. Who are you? You're not really just a student, are you?
I'm someone who's going to stop them, Maya said. But I need you to stay safe and act normal until this is over.
The paramedics arrived and began loading Kyle onto a stretcher.
As they worked, Maya stood up and found herself face to face with Derek Hoffman. That was impressive, Derek said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes.
Most students wouldn't have known what to do in a medical emergency like that.
I took a first aid class during my special program, Maya replied.
Must have been quite a program.
You seem to have learned a lot of useful skills.
Maya met his gaze steadily. You'd be surprised what people can learn when they're motivated. Derek's smile became more genuine, but Maya caught something predatory in his expression. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk more about your experiences soon.
Maybe tonight, after the pep rally.
Maybe, Maya said non-committally.
But, as Derek walked away,
Maya was already planning her next moves.
Kyle had given her crucial intelligence. There was a base beneath the school, the infiltrators were planning something for the football game tomorrow night, and there were more of them than she'd realized. Maya made her way to the computer lab and composed another coded message, this one disguised as a social media post about being excited for the football game. Embedded in the seemingly innocent text were details about Kyle's revelation and a request for immediate tactical support. The rest of the school day passed in a blur of normal classes and ordinary teenage conversations, but Maya was operating on full combat alert. She catalogued every person who looked at her strangely, every teacher who asked unusual questions, every student who seemed to be watching her too closely. By the time the final bell rang, Maya had identified at least 6 additional potential infiltrators among the faculty and student body. The scope of the operation was larger than anyone had realized. Maya walked home through neighborhoods that now looked completely different to her trained eye. Every house could contain enemies. Every person she passed on the street could be under alien control. The peaceful suburban environment was a facade hiding one of the most sophisticated infiltration operations in human history. At home, her mother greeted her with the same cheerful routine, asking about her day and offering to help with homework. Maya went through the motions of normal family interaction while her mind raced with tactical considerations. After dinner, Maya retreated to her room and began preparing for what might be her most dangerous mission yet. She couldn't wait for backup from TDF intelligence. If the infiltrators were planning something for tomorrow night's football game, she had less than 24 hours to gather more intelligence and find a way to stop them. Maya opened her laptop and began researching the architectural plans for Jefferson High School. If there really was a base beneath the building, there would be access points, ventilation systems, and structural vulnerabilities that she could exploit. She was deep in her research when her phone buzzed with another seemingly innocent text message. But, when Maya decoded it, she felt her blood run cold. TDF intelligence had lost contact with their backup team. The operatives who had been moving into position around the school had gone dark 6 hours ago. Maya was on her own. She looked out her bedroom window at the quiet neighborhood street, thinking about all the normal families going about their evening routines. Parents helping children with homework, teenagers texting friends, elderly couples watching television. None of them knew that tomorrow night, during what should have been a harmless high school football game, they might all become casualties in an alien war that was supposed to be over. Maya closed her laptop and began planning an infiltration mission that would either save her community or get her killed trying. Either way, she was done pretending to be a normal high school student. Maya spent the night in her childhood bedroom assembling weapons from household items and school supplies. A mechanical pencil became a stabbing weapon when the eraser end was removed and the metal tip sharpened. Rubber bands and paper clips transformed into projectile launchers. Cleaning chemicals from under the kitchen sink could be combined to create smoke bombs or, with the right catalyst, small explosive devices. She worked quietly, efficiently, using skills learned during survival training on hostile worlds where standard military equipment wasn't available. By dawn, Maya had created an arsenal that would look like ordinary school supplies to casual observation but could disable or kill infiltrators if necessary. Maya also spent time studying the architectural plans she'd downloaded. Jefferson High School had been built over an old storm drain system that connected to a network of utility tunnels beneath the town. If the infiltrators had established a base underground, they were probably using the existing infrastructure. At 6 a.m., Maya's phone buzzed with what appeared to be a reminder about a dentist appointment. Decoded, the message was short and grim. TDF intelligence had confirmed that their backup team was dead. Satellite surveillance showed energy signatures beneath the school consistent with a major Kith-era installation. Maya was authorized to take any action necessary to prevent a mass casualty event. Maya understood what that meant. Command was giving her permission to blow the school to hell if that's what it took to stop the infiltrators. She arrived at Jefferson High an hour before first period and used her lock-picking skills to gain access to the building. The hallways were empty except for custodial staff, and Maya moved through them like a ghost, using her enhanced senses to scan for anything unusual. The basement level was supposed to be restricted to maintenance personnel, but Maya found a door that had been recently modified with what looked like alien technology disguised as a security upgrade. The lock mechanism was more sophisticated than anything that belonged on a high school storage room. Maya spent 10 minutes defeating the lock using tools she'd fashioned from jewelry and school supplies. Beyond the door was a staircase that descended much deeper than it should have, given the school's original blueprints. Maya made her way down the stairs, every sense alert for danger. The walls were lined with what appeared to be normal concrete, but her enhanced vision caught traces of bioluminescent material integrated into the structure.
This wasn't just a hidden room, it was a full installation built using hybrid human Kythera technology.
The staircase ended in a corridor that extended beyond the footprint of the school building. Maya followed it carefully, noting security cameras that had been positioned to look like ordinary building infrastructure and air vents that carried the distinct metallic smell of alien atmosphere recycling systems.
The corridor opened into a vast underground chamber that took Maya's breath away.
The space was easily the size of an airplane hangar, filled with equipment that she recognized from Kythera military installations she'd destroyed during the war.
But this wasn't just Kythera technology, it was an advanced hybrid of alien science and human engineering.
Someone had spent years building this facility, combining the best of both species' capabilities.
Maya counted at least 50 people working in the chamber, moving with the coordinated efficiency of a military operation.
Some of them were clearly human, but others showed signs of partial alien modification, enhanced physical capabilities, technological implants, neural interfaces that allowed direct communication with the facility's computer systems. At the center of the chamber was a device that Maya had hoped never to see again, a neural broadcasting array capable of projecting mind control signals across a wide area. During the war, the Kythera had used similar devices to turn entire human populations into willing servants of the Empire. But this array had been modified with human technology, making it more sophisticated and harder to detect than anything the aliens had achieved on their own. Maya found a concealed observation position and began recording everything with her phone's camera, which had been modified with military-grade sensors during her equipment briefing. The intelligence she was gathering would be crucial for any future assault on the facility. As she watched, Maya began to understand the scope of what the infiltrators were planning. The neural broadcasting array wasn't designed to control people during the football game, it was designed to control them permanently. Tomorrow night, when hundreds of families gathered at the school for the homecoming game, the array would activate and rewrite the neural patterns of everyone within a 5-mile radius. Parents, children, teachers, local officials, all of them would become willing servants of whatever intelligence was running this operation. Maya was photographing the technical specifications displayed on nearby computer screens when she heard footsteps approaching her position. She melted back into the shadows, but not quickly enough. "Maya Chen," said a familiar voice. "I was wondering when you'd find your way down here." Dr. Patterson stepped into view, but he looked different from the friendly chemistry teacher she'd known upstairs. His movements were too precise, too coordinated, and his eyes had the same bioluminescent quality she'd seen in the alien compounds. "Professor Patterson," Maya said, stepping out of concealment. The Kythera themselves, the actual species, are far more adaptable than your military intelligence realized. Dr. Patterson gestured toward the neural broadcasting array. "When it became clear that military conquest wasn't viable, some of us chose a different approach. Integration rather than domination. Cooperation rather than war." Maya thought about the hybrid technology, the humans working alongside modified aliens, the sophisticated coordination required to build this facility without detection. "You're creating a new species," she realized. "Human Kythera hybrids. We're creating the future." Humans have qualities the Kythera lack: creativity, adaptability, emotional resilience. But Kythera biotechnology can enhance human capabilities in ways your species never imagined. Dr. Patterson held up his hand, and Maya saw that his fingers could extend and retract at will, tipped with natural weapons that could cut through steel. "The neural broadcasting array will give us the population base we need to create a sustainable hybrid civilization. Starting with this community, spreading outward until both species have evolved into something greater than either could achieve alone. By mind-controlling innocent people," Maya said. "By offering them the chance to become more than human. Some will resist initially, but the neural modifications reduce psychological barriers to change. Within a few months, they'll wonder why they ever wanted to remain purely human." Maya was calculating distances and attack angles while Dr. Patterson talked. The facility was too large for her to destroy with improvised explosives, but the neural broadcasting array had obvious vulnerability points. "You're planning to activate it tomorrow night," Maya said, keeping him talking while she prepared to move. "During the football game, when the maximum number of people will be gathered in the optimal location. The array's range will cover the entire town, plus several surrounding communities. Nearly 50,000 people in the initial wave.
And if I try to stop you? Dr. Patterson's smile widened, showing even more unnatural teeth. Maya, you're exactly the kind of person we want for the hybrid program.
Enhanced reflexes, military training, proven adaptability to extreme situations.
The integration process would be easier for you than for most people. Thanks, but I'll pass. I wasn't offering you a choice.
Dr. Patterson moved faster than any human should have been able to move, but Maya had been expecting the attack. She rolled sideways, pulling one of her improvised weapons from her pocket. The mechanical pencil she'd modified caught Dr. Patterson in the shoulder, punching through whatever armor was integrated into his skin. Bioluminescent fluid spurted from the wound, and Dr. Patterson howled with a sound that was distinctly inhuman. Maya sprinted toward the neural broadcasting array, but she'd only covered half the distance when security alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lighting activated, and Maya could hear dozens of people converging on her position. She reached the array and began placing improvised explosive charges at critical points in the control system. The devices were small, but they were designed to create cascade failures in precisely the right components.
Stop her!
Dr. Patterson was shouting.
The array cannot be damaged.
Maya armed the first explosive and was moving toward the second control node when something struck her in the back with the force of a sledgehammer. She went down hard, tasting blood, and rolled over to see Derek Hoffman standing above her. But Derek looked different now, taller, more muscular, with skin that had a metallic sheen and eyes that glowed with alien light.
"Hello, Maya," Derek said, and his voice had harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. "We've been looking forward to talking with you."
Maya tried to reach for another weapon, but Derek moved with inhuman speed, pinning her arms with hands that felt like steel clamps. The integration process works differently for everyone, Derek continued.
Some people fight it, some people embrace it.
But everyone changes eventually.
Maya headbutted Derek in the face with enough force to break a normal person's nose. Derek barely flinched.
Enhanced bone density, he explained. One of the first modifications. Along with improved muscle fiber, redundant organ systems, and neural pathways that can interface directly with our technology. More hybrid creatures were surrounding Maya now, some that looked human except for glowing eyes or metallic skin, others that had been modified so extensively that they barely resembled their original species. Dr. Patterson approached, still bleeding luminescent fluid from the wound Maya had inflicted. "Take her to the integration chamber," he ordered.
"Begin the preliminary neural mapping.
If we can convert her before tomorrow night, she'll be useful for managing the newly modified population." Maya was lifted by creatures with strength far beyond human norms and carried toward a section of the facility filled with equipment that looked like a cross between medical devices and alien torture instruments.
As they moved through the facility, Maya memorized every detail she could observe. Guard positions, equipment locations, structural vulnerabilities, information that might be useful if she could find a way to escape.
The integration chamber contained a chair that looked designed to restrain someone while various machines worked on their body and brain. Maya could see neural interface ports, surgical devices for physical modification, and screens displaying what appeared to be brain scan data. "The process takes approximately 6 hours, Dr. Patterson explained as they strapped Maya into the chair. "We'll start with basic neural mapping to understand your existing enhancements, then begin the modifications that will allow you to interface with our technology." Maya tested the restraints and found them to be much stronger than they looked. She was trapped, with less than 24 hours before the neural broadcasting array turned her entire community into hybrid creatures. "Before we begin," Dr. Patterson continued, "I'm curious about your background. Your reflexes, your knowledge of chemistry and military tactics, your ability to recognize our technology. You're clearly not an ordinary high school student." Maya considered her options. She could maintain her cover story, but it was obviously blown. She could try to negotiate, but hybrid creatures probably didn't understand human concepts like mercy. Or she could try something that might give her the information she needed to stop them. "I'm Corporal Maya Chen, Terran Defense Force Special Operations," Maya said. "I fought in the Kith-era war for 3 years. I was on the assault team that destroyed the enemy homeworld." Dr. Patterson's expression shifted from satisfaction to concern.
TDF Special Operations?
That explains a great deal. But it also presents complications.
What kind of complications? Military personnel receive neural conditioning that makes them resistant to our integration process.
The modifications required to overcome that conditioning are extensive.
And not always successful.
Maya realized that her military training might have given her an advantage she hadn't expected.
The neural conditioning that protected soldiers from alien mind control could also protect her from whatever the hybrids were planning to do. So you can't convert me, Maya said.
Oh, we can convert you, Dr. Patterson replied. But the process might damage the very qualities that make you valuable to us. Still, we'll learn a great deal from the attempt. Dr. Patterson activated the integration equipment, and Maya felt something like electric current running through the restraints. Her enhanced nervous system began reporting sensations that didn't correspond to anything in normal human experience. The neural interface was trying to map her brain patterns, but the military conditioning was creating interference. Maya could feel the alien technology probing her thoughts, looking for ways to establish control, and her training was automatically rejecting the intrusion. Fascinating, Dr. Patterson murmured, watching readouts on the monitoring equipment. Your neural architecture is much more complex than we anticipated. The military enhancements aren't just conditioning, they're actual physical modifications to your brain structure.
Maya gritted her teeth as the interface pressure increased.
The alien technology was powerful, but her military conditioning had been designed specifically to resist this kind of attack. It's going to take longer than 6 hours, Derek observed, studying the data displays. Then, we'll take as long as necessary, Dr. Patterson replied. But we may need to modify our timeline. If the TDF has other operatives in the area.
They're dead, Derek said. We eliminated the backup team yesterday.
But there could be others. Maya felt a surge of grief for the TDF operatives she'd never met, but she pushed the emotion aside and focused on what she was learning. The hybrids were worried about additional interference, which meant their operation wasn't as secure as they'd believed. The neural interface continued its assault on Maya's consciousness, and she could feel her resistance beginning to weaken. Whatever the military had done to her brain, it wasn't designed to withstand prolonged attack by technology this sophisticated.
Maya had maybe an hour before the integration process overcame her conditioning.
After that, she would become one of them, and, tomorrow night, thousands of innocent people would be converted into hybrid creatures. Unless she could find a way to turn the situation to her advantage. Maya closed her eyes and began to do something that probably counted as the most dangerous thing she'd ever attempted. Instead of resisting the neural interface, she started to let it in. But, on her terms, not theirs.
Maya let the neural interface into her mind like opening a door to a house filled with explosives.
The alien technology flowed into her consciousness, mapping neural pathways and cataloging memories, but Maya had spent 3 years learning to compartmentalize her thoughts under extreme stress. The interface found what it expected to find: a human mind with military conditioning, but Maya was hiding her real intentions behind layers of tactical deception. While the alien system worked to overcome her resistance, Maya was learning how it functioned. The neural interface was a two-way connection, and her enhanced pattern recognition abilities were analyzing the hybrid technology in real time.
Neural mapping at 60%, Derek reported. Resistance is decreasing significantly.
Dr. Patterson nodded with satisfaction.
Excellent. Begin preliminary integration protocols. Start with basic motor control overrides.
Maya felt the system attempting to influence her muscle movements, trying to establish the kind of control that would make her a willing servant. But her military conditioning included training for exactly this scenario: how to maintain autonomy while appearing to be compromised. She let her arms relax in the restraints, making it look like the system was gaining control, while actually maintaining full awareness and volition.
Motor control established, Derek announced. Beginning cognitive modification sequences.
This was the dangerous part. The alien technology was now trying to rewrite her thoughts, her memories, her fundamental personality.
Maya had to resist the cognitive modifications while appearing to submit to them.
She thought about her training, about the techniques TDF psychologists had taught her for maintaining identity integrity under neural assault. The key was to anchor her core self to experiences that were too complex and too deeply integrated for alien technology to easily modify. Maya anchored herself to the moment when she'd watched Earth disappear behind her as she left for her first combat assignment. The fear, the excitement, the determination to protect humanity from alien threats. The memory was so vivid, so emotionally charged, that the neural interface couldn't touch it without triggering defensive responses throughout her entire nervous system.
Cognitive modification encountering unexpected resistance, Derek said, frowning at his displays.
Increase integration intensity, Dr. Patterson ordered.
We need complete conversion before tomorrow night.
The pressure in Maya's head increased dramatically, but she was ready for it. Instead of fighting the attack directly, she began feeding the alien system false information, memories that seemed authentic but were actually carefully crafted deceptions.
Maya let the interface believe that she was beginning to see the logic of human Kythera integration.
She allowed it to think that her resistance